Hi, Dennis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Okay. Give it a few more minutes. Hi. Welcome, Ricardo, Ragul, Tejas.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Laura. All right. Yeah, so welcome back. I know it doesn't affect us, but Friday is a holiday. So some of my other lectures and classes won't be meeting Friday. So we might be getting ahead of ourselves. We'll be maybe one lecture ahead of everybody else. So that's okay. So as I mentioned, this week we are focusing on getting the project started. We were going to cover this a little later, but I think it's worth reviewing how to set up servers, how to create RESTful APIs, so that the front end can store information permanently. And so the way you can do that is through communicating with a server on the cloud, right, and sending it data so that it can retrieve it at some point. Right now we're building a server that can play around with movies, it can create movies, delete movies. Right now it's storing it in a local array, but then next week we will introduce how to do this in a database. Right, we'll use a non-relational MongoDB database, and that will be the topic of next week. So for now, we're learning how to create the server and also how to integrate with that server from a React application. So we're going to review what we did last lecture, and then we're going to add some more features. And if we have time, we're going to even connect it to a third-party API that has information about movies, like OMDB. Okay. So before we get started, any questions? Again, just reviewing the schedule. The schedule is that we are going to have the final exam the Friday the 9th. The Friday the 9th will be the final exam, or exam 2, or that week, right? So it'll be made available just like we did for exam 1. For the graduate students, it'll be available for several days, and you're welcome to take it any one of those days. And that will be that week of Friday the 9th will be the last that we meet. We'll meet on Monday. We'll go over, we'll review past exams. We'll take a look at sample questions, right, so that we can review for the final exam, which will be that later that week. And then the week after that, the week of let's see, the week of the 12th. That's for this week. 12th and 16th, we're gonna grade the final projects. Right? And the way we're going to grade them is that we're going to meet with you. We'll go over the requirements, how what you build meets the requirements, and we'll take about half an hour, maybe an hour at most. You'll demonstrate the project. We'll ask you questions on how certain features implement certain requirements. Okay. All right. So that's the schedule for the next couple of days. Let's see, questions. Quiz. Yeah, the quiz will be released later this week. The submission of the project will just basically be the code repository, source control, GitHub repositories for the front end, source repository for the back end, for the middle tier, and you giving a demo of the project, and so that also URLs to the application actually running on Netlify and being hosted on a remote server, either AWS or Heroku or Firebase or whatever you finally decide to use as a framework. Yeah, Heroku free dynos. So it turns out that if you are a student, you can create an account as a student account, and that you can continue using it free. I can't because I'm a faculty, but if you're a student, you can. I have several students that have gone through the process and have applied and received the free tier for Heroku. So I would suggest you can start doing that, going through that process. You'll need to use your university email, and then you can use it for free. I haven't been able to do it, so I have a paid account because I'm a faculty, and so I'm not allowed. Okay. Yeah, so let's review real quick what we were playing around with yesterday. We played around with an API that allows us to retrieve data, right? That was being posted at 4,000, and it retrieved the movies. And so we created a controller, right? We created a small server that retrieved the data like this, right? And then we wrote a small React component that could go fetch this data and then render it here on the screen, right? So we showed how to create the server and then the client that can communicate with that. So let's review that really quick. So there's the server. So on the server side, we installed the Express library, right? With the Express library, we created an app instance. We configured it so that you can receive requests from any domain. We also configured it so that it can parse JSON data from the message. And then we told the server to listen at 4,000. We wrote a controller that could that defines a data structure, right? Arrays of objects, and that can respond to these 4 different types of requests. It can ask for all the movies, right? Get movies /movie, and then just returns the array of all the movies. You can also respond to deleting a movie by encoding the ID of the movie that we want to delete in the URL, and then we can parse out that parameter from the path, right? And then we can use that to calculate a new array of movies that excludes that particular movie, and we send back a success 200 code. We also wrote it so that this post that can receive a movie embedded in the body, can extract it from the request we can append additional attributes. Maybe we can also add some initial values such as likes, initialize it 0, initialize whether we liked the movie, also initialize it false. Okay. The new movies are initialized with these values. Okay. And then we were able to send it, and then we see that we can add a new movie. So say 3, create, and it gets added. We refresh, goes and fetches the movie again, and those are the ones that are in the array in the memory of the server. We also did an update, which we can pass in the ID of the movie that we want to update as part of the path. And then we can parse that from the path, right, from the params. We can also parse the JSON data that comes from the client, right? And then we merged the movie, found it in the array, we merged it, we put it back. Now, why do you have an empty string at the end of the ID? Right, because this is an integer. So it's a big integer, and I want my IDs to be strings. So this converts the whole thing into a string. So appending an empty string converts this whole thing into a string. It's a cheap trick. Okay, so that's from the server side. Now from the client side, we created first a service, right, which is the mirror image of a controller. So the controller receives the request, right, and then responds. Controllers on the client side sends the request and then receives the response. Okay, and we implemented just a few of these. We implemented first the find all, and this is what generates the get, so making the get to the which is going to be handled by who? By the controller. This controller here going to receive this get right there. So the client running on the browser is going to send an HTTP GET to that URL, which looks just like that. It looks exactly like this. It's me sending a URL request to a server listening at port 4000, just like that. So that's what this is doing programmatically, though. Right? This is doing it programmatically through this API. We're sending it URL. The server receives this, find all, and it responds with the array of movies. So here's the response object coming back from the server. The actual data, the array coming back, this array, is in the data. We extract it and we respond. Okay. We wrap this inside of a thunk. Thunk, here it is. So wraps the function find all movies, and whatever this function of the thunk returns, that's what gets put in the action, in the payload of the action, right? So that now this is first invoked. So this thunk is first invoked by the component, the movies component, that on load dispatches the thunk, right? Dispatches the thunk. The thunk calls the service. The service returns with an array of movies, so that the reducer, right, when it's fulfilled, it's going to receive the movies in the payload. So these are the movies. So the state is going to be an array of movies, and that's going to be read from the movies component. It's going to select the movies from the store, and then it can iterate over the movies here, or movies. Okay. All right. All right. So let's keep working on a few other things. Right. I'm not going to implement deletes. If we have time later on, we can play around with deletes. I do want to cover something a little harder. So I think you can figure it out, right? The service. Oh, I guess I'll write them out. So the services are the delete movie is going to receive the ID of the movie, right? It's going to just a response. They all look the same, right? So wait dot axios dot delete. This is a URL. I'm going to need to append to the movie URL. I need to append the movie ID at the end, right? To match the controller, right? I'm deleting. I need to append the ID. So there it is. The response comes back. Now our response, the delete movie, is not responding with anything useful. It's just responding with a 200. So we can just ignore that, right? So it's kind of like a status going back. So the response data contains that status 200. So it's not really useful to us. So we're just going to ignore it. Instead, what we're going to return is the movie ID. Right? So that back in the reducer, we can use that. Use the delete movie thunk fulfilled. So the action is going to have the payload, is going to have the ID of the movie. So basically, we're just going to filter out that movie. Right? So say state dot. So we can find first index. Right? We can find the index. Say const will be index. It'll be the state dot define index of the movie whose movie ID matches the action dot payload, which is the ID. Once we have the index, we can splice out and say state dot let's see splice, or we can say state. Well, actually, it would be easier if we just filter it out, right? Say state dot filter. That's I like this better. Filter the movie. I'm only going to keep the movie ID is not the actual payload. Not that. So that presumably recalculates the array and just removes that element. And the way we kick this off is from within the line item, right? We have a delete button, delete, and on click, right? We can invoke, we can dispatch the delete movie done, we can pass it the movie. That's what it is. Okay. So let's try it out. Refresh. So remove this one. Let's see. I guess that didn't work. Okay. Let's see. Give it another console. Refresh. Remove that. So let's see. Non-function. Blah blah blah. Web type error 0. Not a function. Delete movie chunk is not a function. Oh, it's not. Delete movie chunk. Oh, we never implemented it. Okay, so yeah, create a async chunk, which is a wrapper around delete movie, and the functions that can pass in the movie ID. I'm going to call the delete movie, pass it movie. And, not sure if that works. Okay, so I did delete it in the network. Okay, let's move this one. Okay, notice that we did send a delete. There it is. Send the delete with the ID. Okay. and we get a response. Okay. So if we refresh, notice that indeed it is gone. So it is removing the movies. For some reason, it's not updating it in the user interface. And so here's the reducer. So presumably we would we're calculating, right, the movies, and we're only keeping the ID. Oh, he's not. We only want to keep the ones who are not. That. Let's try that again. So let's remove this one. That didn't work either. I guess we can step through it. Source, open the movie reducer. Here's a delete. Let's add another one. Just delete it. Delete that one. Okay, let's see what the payload says. Let's see what's in the payload. This is action payload. Okay, so it looks like it's a string. It looks like it's a string, and state is so that looks like a string. So look, oh, that's weird. It's a string. Let's make a let's see the look at ones that's not finding it. So the payload is correct. Its payload is correct. And let's continue there. So to debug it, what we can do is as follows. We can make this a little bigger so that we can put breakpoint in there, see what's actually happening. And we're going to return this.
Professor, quick question. Are we storing the ID as string or number?
Well, I thought it was, I was doing string, but maybe I'm not. I'm guessing that maybe the data types are wrong. So let's see. Let me create a movie. I'll delete. Okay, let's see. Let's see if we're comparing the right things. So we can look at the movie and okay, that's 1, 2, 3. It's a string. Let me say action payload. That's a string. So that's not going to be equal. See the values here. Payload is that. Action is that. Okay. So next. It is 2, 4, 5. Okay. 4, 5, 6. Okay, here it is. Okay, so this is the one we want to delete, correct? So is this true? Is that true? Copy. So is it not equal? Huh? Filter. So, so it is equal, right? So it's true. Yeah, so this should work. Interesting. Why is it not working? So one thing that is useful is instead of using state directly, what it is that you're editing, right? It's often useful to do the following, to create something like this where you do an initial state right? And it's an object instead of the actual array or something that you are manipulating. So for instance, you have something like movies, right? We have an empty array, and here you could have additional stuff, right? Maybe like it's loading to keep track on whether the data is there yet. So now let's do that. State. Okay. Then this would be state dot movies for that. This would be dot push, right? This would be state dot movies dot filter, right? So this dot movies, and so also in the index, right? You would grab. So that's the name of the reducer, right? But this would be now movies. Or right, you can this you would be retrieving that. Okay. Movies, push, or you could say receiving it and blah blah blah. Forgetting something. State that movies that push, yeah. And the index the movie state that Java server and find and they are below other four movies and they are that are more. And see, okay, now it's working. Yeah, so this is much better for Redux to determine that the state has actually changed. If you're manipulating an array and you are changing objects inside of an array, right? And Redux will do a shallow comparison of the array, and so it won't know that you have done something to that array. But if it's an object, right, it'll do a deep comparison, right, and verify that something has indeed changed. Right? So it's often useful to use objects instead of arrays. All right. Anyway, so let's say that I want to like the movie, right? So for instance, in the index, right, I would have maybe another button, and the button would be that I want to like the movie. This would be a button, and I want to like the movie. So what should we do? If I like the movie, should I edit the movie here? Should I edit the movie here? What do I do? Because what happens if I like the movie, then the number of likes should go up. Right. Also, I need to somehow specify that Alice or whoever has liked this movie. So liking a movie is setting a relationship between two objects. Right. You have to stipulate that so and so has liked this movie. There's a relationship between two things. Okay. Of whoever's logged in or whoever is liking it, as opposed to just letting anybody just like the movie. Right. So how do we do that? How do we do that? So first of all, we need some kind of representation of users, which we don't have. We sort of have already a representation of movies, right, which we have in the controller. Right? So we need to create also a representation between the person who liked it and the movie that is being liked. Right? So how do we do that? So on the server side, we need some representation of users, which we don't have anything. We haven't implemented anything. In the like, right, we need to be able to say, Alice likes this movie. Right? So things would be in the controller. We would have things such as what we said about doing a CRUD. Right? Remember that we need to be able to create like. Right? We can create like. Right? We need to be able to delete a like. We need to be able to retrieve all the likes. We need to update a like. Yeah. So the like, as we said, it's a relationship between two things, right? Users and movies. So if you create a like, if you click on the button, I like this movie, we need to create a new record that says that so and so likes this movie. And if you unlike, then we would need to delete that record saying that so and so likes that movie. So we no longer like it. So there's no record of you liking something, right? You click it a couple of times, you count toggling, creating and removing that relationship between the two. Find all likes. Well, that depends, right? Since now it's a binary representation or relationship, it is a legitimate question to ask. I'm Alice. Give me all the movies that I like, and I'll get 10 movies. But if it's Bob, then I'll come back with the 3 movies that Bob likes. Correct? But it's also a legitimate question to ask it from the movie's point of view, right? Saying, okay, well, this particular movie, who likes this movie, right? And it'll come up with 30 people that like that movie. But if I ask it about some other movie, it'll come back with a different set of users that like that movie. Make sense? So this find a likes is a it could be that I want to know all the likes. Okay, and that could be something legitimate. But I can certainly have other finders. Like I said, find movies like by, right? And we have some user, so by user that we provide some user ID. Or the other way around, say, const find users who liked, right? So these are all legitimate questions. Okay. So the question would be, okay, well, how do we encode these relationships when we send the request, right? Because in the movies it was straightforward, right? We want to create a brand new movie, and this movie is not related to anything, right? The movie can stand on its own, right? It doesn't have to exist within the relationship of anything else. Right. Same thing when I find all the movies, I can retrieve all the movies, right? Again, without the relationship of anyone else. But now we're creating something that is a relationship between two things. So how do we encode that? Obviously, all these are in the controller, right? So they all get request response, of course. Right? So we have request response, all these. Okay. And then obviously this is inside of a likes controller that receives an app and all these guys are in here, right? And then we have app. And we have app.get, right? We have app.post, app.put, and app.delete. Right? The 4 types of things that we can do. Now here we have one create. When we want to create a new light, so that's going to be the post. Right? So that's going to be the post. So we're going to have the create light here. But now we want to delete, so there's going to be a delete. That's going to be a delete light. But there's 3 reads, right? 3 gets. We want to get 3 things. Right? So there's going to be 3 of these, right? We need 3 of these. And which are going to be for each one. So find all, find movies, and find user. Well, actually, this would be find users, right? Find users. This would be find user. And we're going to have the update light. Now, this one might not make sense, right? Updating a light. I mean, I don't know. Are there things about a light that could change over time? That's kind of silly, right? You either like it or you don't. Right? There's nothing to change. Now, if this were a rating, right? A 3 stars or 4 stars, then maybe, right? This could be you have a rating, and the rating could change over time. You liked it yesterday, but now you don't like it, so you change the star. So rating might be a way that needs an update, but a like, probably we don't need it. So I'm just going to comment it out. I'm not going to. Okay, so create is this one, right? So what are we going to send it? We need information about what? We need information about who liked it, and then what movie did you like? So as part of the URL, how are we going to encode that? And we need 2 things. We need to, in the path, we need the ID of the movie that is being liked, and also we need the ID of the. So we need the ID of the user who liked the movie, and then the movie itself, what that's being liked. We have to encode those 2 things. Well, it so happens that there is a standard for this, right? Or a best practice of how to encode things, right? In a path. There is a pattern that we should follow. And now we were sort of following that pattern here in the controller, in the movies controller, right? The pattern is very easy, as follows. First of all, if you're retrieving movies, then the path should include a noun, plural noun, that specifies what it is that you're looking for, right? So if this is movies, then we chose a very good plural noun, movies. If it's users, then it would be users. Right? If it's songs, it would be songs, whatever it is. Right? Now, if you don't provide if you provide a primary key, right? So if you follow that noun, right, that plural noun, you follow with a primary key, then it's understood that you are referring to a specific instance, right? Now, if you do not provide an ID, then it means that you are referring to the entire collection of those things. Right? So post means that I want to add a new element to that collection of movies, whereas get movies means I want the entire collection of movies. Whereas put MID means I want to modify that one instance, and delete means I want to delete that one instance. Let's go back to likes. So what happens when you have 2 things? Now, what happens when you have 2 things? So the convention, right, is that you should think of this as a hierarchy, right? A parent-child relationship, right, or like an ownership relationship, right? Of who owns what, or what relationship you want to follow. Now, sometimes it's not clear that there is a parent-child relationship, right? Like, for instance, between a user and a movie, I don't know that they think of it as a parent-child relationship. But nevertheless, these would have to be as users referring to that this UID refers to a specific user, and this would be movies saying that this is a specific movie. Okay. Now notice that this now becomes a path, kind of like a path that is navigating through a hierarchy that says, well, if you just say users movies, then you're saying that you want to talk about a specific user, and then well, what do you want to know about that user? Well, then users movies, those are the movies that are related to that user. Now, movies could be related in many different ways, right, to this user. It could be that I am the director of that movie, or I am an actor in that movie, I'm the writer, or I could just be a fan that I like that movie, right? So this over here, right, could be, right, referring to a specific movie, or a relationship with that movie. Right? So, for instance, a better capturing of the data that we are capturing here is that this would be a likes, and then the ID of the movie. Now, notice that this looks like a verb, but it's not really a verb, right? It's the verb to like, but it's really the noun likes, right? We want to capture the likes. Who likes what? This user likes that, right? Delete, it would be same thing. We would capture saying that we want to remove this relationship. Right? We no longer like this movie, so we dislike it. Right? Now here we have been using very strict naming conventions where you're creating a like entry, but if you can think of a better name that better describes the creation, right? Just feel free to rename this so that it makes more sense. So, for instance, create like might have a better name, as in, user likes. Okay, and or then user, and this a better name might be, user unlikes. Maybe that's a better name. But understanding that one is being adding data, whereas the other one is deleting data. Find all likes. Okay, so find all likes, that might literally mean that we want all the likes across all the users and across all the movies. Probably might make no sense to implement this. There might be gazillion numbers of likes, right? It might probably make more sense to be the likes of a particular person in a particular movie, but not the bazillions numbers of likes. But nevertheless, it might be useful for testing. So here would be all the likes. I'm getting all the likes. And how about here? What do we have here? So it says find movies liked by user. Right. Liked by user. Okay. So meaning you're gonna give me the user, and then I want you to give me all the likes, and you're gonna come back with all the movies that were liked by that user. Right. So this would be, given the user, I want to know all the likes, right? And the likes returns the movies. Right? So meaning I don't want to know a specific like, I want to have all the likes. And how about vice versa? Find the users who like the movie, meaning if I tell you the movie, I want to know the likes. But now, when you come back is with an array of users, who likes this movie, right? So this might be something like, if you tell me the movies, a specific movie, right? And I want to know the likes. But here the likes comes back with the users who like that particular movie. Make sense? Okay. So all right. So we have a way of encoding the data, back and forth, like communicating with the server. So what does the data look like? So for instance, we might have here const likes. It's going to be an array. It's going to be an array of basically a tuple that says who the user is that liked what movie. Right? So it'll be something like they might all have first will have a unique. They'll have a unique identifier, but then it'll have maybe the user, right? And this might be some user ID followed by a movie that they like, right? And I can have a few of these. Right, all these would be unique records, presumably in some database, and these would be different users. So maybe this same user likes 2 movies, right? And then we can have this one is movie 5, and then the same movie is being liked by 2 different users, right? Okay. Now, presumably these IDs would match some actual user, stored maybe, I don't know, in some database. I'm going to put it in the controllers here, or maybe in some array. In users, JavaScript called users or default array users. Right. This is underscore users 111 and to Alice and again. So Alice, Bob, and Charlie. Okay. Now the controller, right, would have all the CRUD operations about users, being able to reuse, update users, right, retrieve users. So we have that data. Now this would be useful. We don't really need it. Only for display purposes, perhaps that'd be useful. So let's implement a few of these things, right? We have the likes. Okay. So what happens when if a user likes a movie? We're going to have the ID of the user and the movie, right? So we're going to need to retrieve all both things. So we'll say we're going to have the user ID, so UID, so class.commands.uid, and we'll need the movie ID as well. We'll create a like object. We're going to have a unique identifier, right? The new date, get time plus. Then we have a user. We're going to have the UID. We're going to have the movie ID, and then we're just going to append. We'll say likes dot push, right? The new like object, and we're just going to return. We're going to respond, send back. Send back a that we would send. Actually, maybe we might send back the actual like object that we just created. So that's useful. And then we could update the user interface with that. Okay. If we have user unlikes, Right? If a user unlikes a movie, we need to remove that record, right? So we need to find, again, we have to retrieve, right, these, right? And then we need to do what? We need to find that record so that we can splice it out. So we say, the likes, filter out, filter the like. So I only want the likes where the user is not, user is not UID, and also the user, the like movie is not movie ID. Okay, so it's only going to skip the one that matches both, right? And then we're going to respond, send back, saying, yep, we're good. I filter it out. Okay. Find all likes. Well, that's true. We can just send back all the likes. Okay. Find the movies liked by a user. So we need to retrieve. We're going to send back the movies by the user. So let's find out. So basically, we are going to filter out. Right. So find movies. The movies will be what? We're going to filter out those likes, only those likes. We're going to pass in by the user ID. Right? So the user ID. We're going to find, we'll pass in the user ID, find movies liked by user. There it is. And then so we're going to filter out the movies that have that user, right, in the like. We'll say likes, right? Filter and the like, where the like user, matches the UID. And then we're going to respond, send back the movies. Now this is really going to be the like. Right? This is going to be the like object. Ideally, we would replace the user and we would, in a database, we would join this table with a movie table, right, to retrieve the title of the movie and whatnot. And we could do that. But let's keep it simple. And here it's the opposite. We want, again, the movie ID. The movie ID. So we're going to filter out the user from the like. We're going to filter, right, from the like, where the movie matches the movie ID. And then we're going to send back the yeah. All right, so let's play around with this. Let's include this in our app.js. So we're gonna import this and say the likes controller. We'll pass it app. Oops. And it did not import it. Why did it not import it? Okay. Did we export this? Oh, we didn't. Export falls forward. And we're going to import it. Import. Okay, there it is. All right, so let's restart the server and let's play around with it. Let's see. Blah, blah, blah. Where's so terminal? Stop it. Stop it again. So I should be able to receive or retrieve all the likes. I should be able to come here and say look post 1,000 likes. So these are all the likes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just obviously these are IDs that would need to be matched against the IDs of users. Movies, we also have to be matched with IDs of movies, right? But right now we have just IDs. Okay, so let's see. You can say, okay, so user 1 likes these 2 movies, 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4. Right, so let's see. Let's say user 111, and with the likes. It comes back indeed with these 2 movies, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. Obviously, we would need to merge it with the other table. We do the other way around. Right? So let's see. I'll go back. And if instead I give you the movie 3, 4, 5, say the movies 3, 4, 5, you get the likes. Then it comes back with these 2 users, 2, 2, and 3, 3, 3. Okay, that makes sense. All right. All right, excellent. Yeah. Obviously, we would still have to do the create that somebody likes the movie. Let's leave that to later. Right. I want to switch gears a little bit, and so here we have a user interface. We need to create the user interface to interact with this and whatnot. Right, we can take a look at that in a minute. We have to create the service. We need to create the funcs. Right, we need to create the reducer, the likes and whatnot. Yes. But where all this information come from? We need a source material, right, with actual data about actual movies, right, and so that we actually are liking something, right? Right now, it's all very, very abstract, right? It's just data. How did the data make it into there, right? How who put these movies into this array of movies? Who created this array? How did it ever create? Okay, do we like have to download it from somewhere? Create? No, we're not going to do that. So instead, we're going to be using a real data source, right, where we can query for actual data and create a user interface that displays this. And then, be logged in as Bob. Right? I'm going to say, "Ooh, I like the Guardians of the Galaxy." So I need to store now in the database, right, that Bob likes this particular movie somehow. Right? So that means that I need a record that represents Bob. I need a record that represents, Guardians of the Galaxy in my database, right? And I need to establish a relationship between Bob and Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, if the movie is not already there, I'm going to have to create it. I'm going to have to do an insert and create it in there. If it's already there, I don't want to create it again. I just need to establish the relationship between the two. Make sense? So yeah, let's implement some of this. So first, let's see how do I get this data, in my user interface. So this is going to be very, very similar to what we have done to interact with our own endpoint, right? We're going to have to create a service that talks to this. We're going to have to create a funcs, right, for all this, right? But the thing is here that we can only do reads to this service, right? We can't do a post, we can't do a delete, we can't do an update. The only thing we can say is gets, right? So it's going to be easier than that, right? So let's do that. Let's first create a service, right, that can retrieve a set of movies, right? If you can provide it here a search term, right? Guardians. Now this is my IP address. I'm sorry, this is my IP key. Please do not use my IP key. I'm paying for that IP key. And there's a limit of how many queries I can get here. So on the client, I'm going to use my movies, right? So there's movies that go out to my database, right? So I'm going to create another directory, and this will be my OMDB. I'm dealing with OMDB movies. So I need a service for this. So this will be OMDB service that can do a few things, right? Can export find movie by title or by search term, right? And search term, and I'm going to do a query. Okay. Now I do have a URL though. I have a URL. So this will be my search URL. So it's going to look something like that. Something like that. And here's Guardian. So I want to append this. So let me change the structure of this query. Like that. Ampersand here. This is using a query string that has two parameters, s and app key. The app key, that's my personal app key, which I'm paying for, right? And then s equal to some term. Right? So I'm going to remove this term here because I'm going to concatenate it, right, with this term. So I'm going to use Axios. I'm going to have a response. I'm going to have this is going to be async, just like we did for hours, right? We're going to wait. And we're going to do Axios dot get, and here's the URL. URL is the search URL, and then I'm going to concatenate at the end the actual term. Notice I'm going to say slash. I'm not saying slash because it's just appending to this equal sign. There's no slash. So the response comes back, and so I'm just going to return the response dot data. Now the data, notice that the data that comes back is an object that has three fields. Yeah. The first field is the actual search results. Right? The other ones are some meta information about the response being successful, and that there are 218 matches, right? Because this allows you to paginate, right? This one gives you the first 10 results, but then you can add additional attributes here that allows you to ask for the next 10 and the next 10, so you can paginate 10 at a time. So I really don't want all of it. I just want the search. I don't want this whole thing. So this will be dot data dot search. Okay. All right, excellent. So let's create a func for this. This will be an OMDB funcs. Let's see, questions on the chat. Let's see, question in the chat says, oh yes, thank you, Ricardo. So Tejas is saying, since we use an external API in project, does that mean we only code a service in the React app side and not a controller? Correct. Correctamundo. So to interact with the third-party API, hopefully you'll be able to interact with it from the React application, right? It'll be much easier. The only controls that you'll need to build are for your API, the API that you create. Right? Here, I'm talking on a service. I'm talking to a controller that OMDB wrote. So I don't own that controller. So I don't know how they implemented it. They own that. I don't have control of it. I can only interact with it with a service. For my API, I need my API so that I can store information about Alice or Bob liking a movie. There's no other place that I can put it. Right? I need to talk to my server, to my controller, to say that Alice likes Terminator. Okay. So yeah, so you do need a controller, you need a RESTful API, so for you to be able to store this information. You can get around that. Okay, so let's create a func. With func, we're going to have a const export. And what do I call it? Fine, blah 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 blah. Func. So create async func, and the fine blah blah blah. Then function is going to call find movie by search term. Here it is. So we need to pass the term here. And all right, and then we'll need a reducer here, right? So we'll say find a reducer, blah blah blah. So it's going to be my OMDB reducer, and so this is going to be const OMDB reducer, and create a slice, right? That have initial state that will be initial state, state. Going to have the movies and array. It doesn't matter if it's the same. I can use the same if they're movies in both cases. But these movies have a different set of attributes in mind, right? So this one has lowercase title, whereas theirs has capital title, right? So and have different fields than mine. Loading false, and so create slice. I'm going to have the name. I'm going to have OMDB. I'll call it, and this will be initial state, and here are the additional extra reducers. It's going to have the one we just created. Find movies by search term. Func. Right, and this is going to be fulfilled. It's going to be a function that takes the state action, and we'll say that the state dot movies is going to be action dot. Okay. All right. Next thing we're going to do export false when the producer the. All right. We can then head over to where we created the reducer, which I think it was here. No, it was in the app.js maybe. Here's the app.js. So we're going to just add this new reducer. So we call it OMDB with the OMDB reducer. Okay. We're going to fill in the OMDB slice with whatever the OMDB reducer produces, right? Then now we can head over to OMDB as a component that we want to render. We'll say maybe JavaScript. We'll call it OMDB search. I don't know what I put in capital. Let's call it OMDB search. So this will be const OMDB search. This component that can return maybe let's start off with each one OMDB search. Export false search. So what do we render this? Well, I mean, we could render it just at the tippy top here, perhaps, or we could do a router. We could do a router, sure. Put it at the top, maybe. Search. So let's see what that renders like. So here's OMDB search. It doesn't do it. It doesn't do much yet. But what do we want to do? We want to go search something. Yeah, search something. We want to call. We want to dispatch. We want to dispatch somehow. Use dispatch. We want to call. We're going to call the func. Find by term. Where we want to call something by term. But let's create a little input field where we can type in a search. We have input here, and then maybe a button that allows us to search. Okay. Up here. So we'll need a state question in the chat. Since we use it, okay. Trying to map what I'm learning today to the project. For the project, I am using Firebase Store to store the data. This means I query the external API for information to store lights. And by user saying blah 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 and retrieve. When does the role of spinning my server or running controller come in? Yeah, no. Since you are using Firestore and Firebase, then you don't need a controller. Because that would give you direct access to the database through an API. So yeah, you would not need a controller for Firebase and Firestore. Correct. And that's okay because you're gonna learn an entirely new infrastructure. So that's totally fine. It's not like you're it's not like saying, oh, I don't have to do a controller. It's just learning an entire skill, which is perfectly fine. It has its own challenges. It's an entirely different set of challenges. But yes, in this case, in that architecture, you would not need a controller. Correct. All right, so we're gonna have a term here and then a set term. So this is gonna be our search term, right? So maybe that's better name. Search term and set search term. Okay. And so we're gonna use dispatch. Use state and with an initial search term, and we'll say avatar. Start off. And this will have the value as the search term. And we can do an on change, right? On change e, and we can say we can set the search term to be e dot target dot value. Right? So we should be able to, yeah, we go. Right? Type in what we want to search. So once if we click the button, on click, right? It would be a function that gets invoked here, which is going to do what? It's going to dispatch. So dispatch to define moving by search term func, and I'm going to pass it the term. Yeah. So that's going to go in the term, that query term. Okay, no, search term. It's going to go make that query. So let's see. We look at the network. And should be able to see those requests going out. So we say, oh, I'm going to search. So the request went out, and look at that. We got data coming back from our OMDB. And where it should go? Where is it? It should be in the OMDB slice, right? In the movie. So we should be able to say here we should be able to bring out the movie and actually the object. Oops. We can destruct the movies and loading from use select from the selector, right? State dot OMDB, OMDB, I think it's called it, right? So if we, and what do we do with those movies? Well, we could render them here and say, oops, we iterate over that. Right? So we say iterate over the movies map, and for each movie, right, we render we're going to render a line item whose theme is the movie. The unique identifier here is IMDb. Yeah, that's the unique identifier, IMDb. And here we can render the title. There they are. So yeah, so we render that and it retrieves it from the server. So if we say Terminator, right, it'll be a different array. Okay, so that's not changing. That's not changing, right? And the reason is that the state has changed, but we are not being notified that the state has changed. Okay, so let's refresh. So here's that avatar search. So that works the very first time around, but then it doesn't work after that. Avatar 2 search. Even though we are going out, right? We're going out. We are searching, right? And it's changing, but so how do we do that? Let's see. What can we do? We want to be able to dispatch. We want to be able to dispatch. State has changed. So we want to be notified that it has changed. How can we do that? Use effects should be able to do the trick. Should be able to say here, if the movies change, I want you to re-invoke this and do the query again. So if there is a search term, if you're meaning in the second time around, I want you to do the query again and retrieve it. Find movie by search term thumb has the search term. This is only if the movie is changed. Oops. Let's do an infinite loop. Let's kill this. So it's doing the query. That is the movies has changed. Let's see. And it's a query that doesn't. All right, I need to. Oh wait, if the search term changed. It's doing the query, but it's not loading it again. All right, I'll need to take a look at that. All right, I'll debug that. Okay, so the next thing would be, right, that maybe I want to like this movie. I want to like this movie. So for instance, next to this, Well, I'm not going to put a button here, right? And which says like. So how do we do this? How do we store this information? So basically, what we want to send and create a like record, okay, of the currently logged in user, and letting them know that this is the movie that I like. Right? And then if I go to my profile, I should be able to see all the movies that I like. So maybe this is my movies profile down here. Right? I should be able to see the movies that I like. Right. So let's do that. So this would be, if I do an on-click, I should be able to do the same thing. Right? Dispatch here. A like. I want to be able to call. I want to be able to call this like, which we never implemented, right? On the server, we never implemented the likes controller to be able to create this post. We never implemented. Did we? No, we can't, right? So, oh yeah, no, user likes movie. Yeah, this user likes movie. We want to be able to post to this. We want to be able to post to this, and user likes movie will add the user, and we'll choose a user. And the ID that we're using is the ID from IMDb. Okay, so let's do that. So we're going to do a post, which is going to be this. So we'll need a service to handle this. Right? So let's write a service. Now the service would be a likes service, right? To do this, that. Right? So let's do that in the web. We'll do under likes, which we never implemented. We'll create a service that deals with all the things to communicating with the service about likes. It would be the likes service, and we want to be able to implement this user likes movie. We'll do const export const likes movie, and you're gonna have to give me the things that I need. I need to create this URL. I need to create this URL. So the const likes URL will be something like p://local host 4000 / then that URL. Correct? Right. Now I need to be able to build this URL. I need to build this entire URL and append all these things, right? So let me actually go to const users URL. It's going to be that, without all this. And then maybe I can use that instead. So you're going to pass me the UID, and you're going to pass me the MID, which is going to be the IMDb, right? And I'm going to do response dot equal to the async, right? Talking to this my server. And I'm going to do a post, right? That's what the server expects. A post. So I'm going to do Axios dot post, and it's going to be followed by the user URL. So it's this whole thing. I'm going to append the user ID. Oops. UID. Followed by likes, followed by the movie. Okay. There we go. So the response comes back. And what is the response? I believe it's the actual likes object, right? Yeah. I don't know if we're going to need it, but we're going to turn response.data, which is that likes object. Maybe we'll need it. I don't know. We'll need a thunk for this. we'll create a thunk for this. We'll say new JavaScript. This would be the likes thunks. Okay, and so this would be same name. So export on thunk. We're gonna create asynchronous thunk. That would have that ID. Then call user likes movie. We're gonna have to pass in the user who likes the movie and the movie that's being liked, and we're gonna pass it as an argument to this. Right. All right. Yeah. So let's go retrieve that information. Okay. So in we'll get a reducer for that. So let's get a reducer. Say new JavaScript. This will be a likes reducer. Const likes reducer. So create a slice. And that's going to be name, the likes. So have a const initial state, and to have the likes as a empty array, and whether it's loading, not false, and have initial state. And here's where the additional extra reducers. I can now encode all the routers, the thunks. So this is user likes thunk fulfilled, right? It's going to be a function that is going to have a state and the action, and the state dot likes is going to be the action dot data. Okay. So that's oh, I'm sorry, no. It says user likes movie thunk, right? We need to be able to retrieve also the movies that this particular person liked, right? So this is I have liked this. So this is basically I've created a new like. So I'm just going to append, right? Likes push this brand new likes. We also need to be able to retrieve, right? If I'm Alice or whoever, right? I need to retrieve those things that I have liked. But first, let's create a like first of all. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. And so we're going to call this from where? Well, we need to put it in. We need to combine it with all the other reducers, right? So let's do that. Put it here in the reducer, right? With likes, the likes reducer. But we will not export it. Because we can export this. So it's going to be export likes reducer. So in the search, when we click on a movie that we like this movie, we can now do, we can dispatch the like. I can say dispatch user likes movie thumb. So I'm going to pass it an ID of a user. We don't have login yet, so we don't really know the ID of the person who's logged in. So I'm just going to make it up. I'm going to say that I know it's ID 111 for Alice or Bob or whatever. But I know the movie ID. I know it's movie dot IMDb. Okay. So yeah, so let's try it out. Let's try it out, see if this blows up. Let's refresh. So far, these are all the likes. So these are the likes. And 111 likes this movie. So it's like short term. What the heck is this? Oh, the term. The term. Oh, this. That was hard. Search that. Huh? What is going on? Search term. Avatar. Short term 12. What is this? Why is it not searching avatar now? What's going on? This state search term. Input target search term. Oh, this is going to be like that. Sorry, this is the expression. There we go. There we go. Avatar. Cool. All right. So these are presumably all my likes, and I'm gonna. So now if I click on avatar, I like avatar. So let's click on avatar. Oops. Looks like I sent the wrong movie object. Sent what did I send? I was supposed to send the IMDb. So I refresh this. Yeah, I didn't pass in the ID. I made a mistake, right? Although the user worked, right? Look at that, right? So that's there. So I'm not sending the correct information. Let's see. When I liked, let's take a look at the like thunk. What's going on here? So the like reducer, the like service. So I have the UID, the MID. So this is wrong. Thunk. Did I write the thunk correctly? The likes thunk. Here's the UID. Here's the MID. Yeah, that's correct. User likes the movie thunk, and we're calling it from the. We're calling it from the search, no? And we like it. We pass it movie. And IMDb. Yeah, that should be correct. It should be a string. No? It is a string now. Yeah, it is a string. Huh. Right, let's step through the real quick. And so this is source. And we're going to take a look at the likes service. Here's a like service. Put a breakpoint right there. So I'm going to like this one here. There it is. So here's my UID. It should be 111. There it is, 111. MID, I'm passing. Huh? What's all this garbage? Okay, that's wrong. Let's refresh that. Put a breakpoint earlier than this. So it would be in OMDB search. Put a breakpoint right here. There. Search that. So say click. All right. Let's see. Here's 111. Here's movie. So let's clear this. Print that movie. There it is. It's the object. And here's IMDb. Yeah. IMDb ID. Movie dot IMDb. Did I misspell it? Wait, so that is correct. What's going on? Let's get to the live service. See. Why is it saying I'm the wrong thing? ID. All right, I'm going to debug this, and I'm going to push it to the repo so that you can take a look at it. Any questions so far? When we learn, okay, so try to map. Okay, when we learn about login registry next week, are we going to learn about services like Firebase authentication? No, we're not. We're going to build authentication from scratch. So login, register. So somebody had to build Firebase, right? Somebody had to build a Firestore. So you're going to become engineers that would know how to build Firebase, would know how to build Firestore, okay? As opposed to just users of Firebase and Firestore. Yeah, so we'll do database next week, and so we'll build login and register, maintaining state. You know, how does the server and client you know, remember that it's still you, right? That you're having a conversation back and forth, you know, starting a session and the server being able to track that conversation. Track not in the negative connotation of, you know, following every move that you're doing, but, you know, to be able to establish a conversation that, you know, that we have some kind of context within that conversation. So that we'll start next week. We'll do databases and start also with session management. Okay. All right, excellent. Yeah, let me fix this and I'll push the two repos, the client and the server. Yeah, so the quiz will be the same thing as earlier, right? It will be due over the weekend. So it'll be available sometime on Friday, and you'll have a couple of days to take the quiz. All right. Bye, everybody. Good night.